Welcome to the Limit Free Life Show. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host. I bring you tips, advice, and guest stories about creating work you love. Whatever type of career or business you have or want, I want to help you find more meaning, money, and happiness. Now we are live from Hollywood. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Limit Free Life Show. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host, and I'm so glad you're here with us today. We have a wonderful show, a wonderful guest on today. I can't wait to introduce you to him. And this show is great for career changers, people who would like to change their careers, people who are just generally feeling a little less happy, less fulfilled, or you're not making the money that you want in the work that you do. This is a show to listen to get tips, advice, and hear from experienced people on how to make change, how to really find the fulfillment and the wonderful work that you're seeking in your life, whether that's as a business owner or working in an organization. So either one can lead to fulfillment and happiness, but it's a personal choice. And we've had guests on who can help business owners. We've had guests on who can help career coaches. And today's guest, or to help career transitioners, I'm sorry. And today's guest has some advice in both arenas. And without further ado, I'm going to bring him on. We have today with us Paul Fortune. And I'm going to give you a little background on him before we actually welcome him onto the show. As an infant, Paul was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, which is a paralyzation of one side of the body. The doctors detected this diagnosis when he was just an infant. The doctors told his mother that he would never be able to walk and she should get him comfortable in a wheelchair. His mother disagreed with the doctor and went on an extreme search to find a specialist that could help. After months of searching, they found someone that was willing to help. He went through intense physical therapy, barely being able to walk. He was put in sports at a very early age and was extremely embarrassed of how little he could move around. He went through surgery on his foot and was able to gain a little bit more mobility. Craving just to be able to fit in with the other kids, he was teased and made fun of. He made a promise to himself at a very young age that he was going to ignore all the negative noise and began playing and loving baseball. As a young boy, he wanted to be able to play baseball at a high level. His dreams came true when he was able to make the varsity high school team his junior year as a pitcher. He's always enjoyed the underdog story because, well, he was an underdog. And as an adult, he's been able to be a high producer in the home loan sales industry and has transferred those skills into the coaching industry because he wanted to help people achieve their goals and be a positive influence in their lives. He has a career coaching certification and prides himself on influencing others to reach for their dreams and not let anyone put limits on them. To learn more about Paul, we'll let you know this information again later, but you can subscribe to his weekly podcast called Actions and Limits, available on all the podcast platforms. And Paul, welcome. We're so happy to have you here today.
Well, I'm glad to be on. I appreciate the invite.
Sure. We have some crossover in what we do. And so I like to tell people that we actually met on LinkedIn because I'm always encouraging people to get on LinkedIn and meet some new people. So that was good fortune on my part that we were able to meet that way. And I found your story to be really intriguing and just your energy to be so positive. And I love, anyone who is basically pushing for a limit-free life, and that's you. So if you could give us, I'll just let you jump in and give us a little background. I read some bits about you, but we'd love to hear from you more about how this journey went for you and how you got to this place where you're doing what you do currently.
Absolutely. So yeah, as the bio stated, I suffer from cerebral palsy, and it was diagnosed as an infant. And like the bio, the doctor thought I wasn't going to be able to walk. And thank goodness for a great mom, and thank goodness for a good mindset on my part that I went along with the program. It was definitely not easy. I could remember as a young boy playing soccer, and I could barely run 50 to 100 yards while the other kids are running laps. and I just felt defeated. And I you know, I wanted just to fit in with the other kids. And as mentioned in my bio, I was able to have an operation on my foot that actually gave me some flexibility, and I was able to run a little bit. From my becoming in kindergarten to first grade, I switched schools, and my first day at physical education, after my operation, I was told, to run a lap with the other kids. And I thought to myself, uh-oh, here we go again. Everybody's going to notice that I'm not going to be able to run, that I'm going to be made fun of. But something miraculous happened at that point. Due to my surgery, I was running, and all of a sudden, I didn't have to stop. I kept going. And I was like telling myself, come on, Paul, keep going. You're doing this. You're doing this. And I finished the lap with the other kids, and I felt, on the outside, I kept it cool, but on the inside, I felt like, yes, finally, the first time in my life where I fit in with the other kids. And that was my first real big victory. Obviously, it wasn't easy from there. I walk a little bit differently. I hold my right arm a little bit differently than the other kids. So I would still get teased quite a bit. And junior high got really bad. I would sit up in my room pretty much every day after school, and I would cry. I'd be, why do I have to be different than everybody else? Why? And during that period of time, I was going up to I don't know what happened, but I went up to my room and I was crying, and I got fed up, and I said to myself, no more. I don't want to feel this way anymore. And I thought to myself, I need to focus on something. I can't just, worry about what the other kids are thinking about me. I just need to focus on something. Well, I always grew up watching baseball, and I had a real passion for it. And I thought to myself, what if I set a goal to myself? What if I said, what, maybe I can make the varsity baseball team? And, at the time, that was a pretty lofty goal for myself because of my physical limitations. So, every day after school, I would throw a tennis ball against the garage over and over again. I mean, the neighbors probably got sick of me doing it, but eventually they got onto the program, what I was doing. So they were supportive. And something else happened that was really great during this transition, that I really had a focus, really had a purpose. It changed the opinions of the other kids. They noticed that I had a real goal about making the baseball team, and they, instead of bullying me, they became very supportive of me. I don't know. I just, it was weird. I changed my mindset, so they changed their mindset about me.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to say I did make the varsity baseball team. And on my senior year, I was able to pitch a 3-hit shutout, and I batted over 300.
I love
And
that.
I took this, this mindset to me through college. I was an okay student, in high school, but after I made the varsity baseball team, my self-esteem went up even more, and I wanted to be successful at something. I didn't know what. And out of college, I had an opportunity to get into the mortgage industry, and it's a sales job. So, everything is up. And I'll never forget my first day out of orientation. I was so pumped up. It was a great orientation. So I was just jacked up, and I wanted to go out and get loans. And I remember, getting the rate sheets ready, because at this time it was less on the computer, was more, with paper.
Right.
So I was gathering rate sheets together to go out and sell. And I remember my boss coming to me, knowing that I didn't have no experience at all, saying, well, what are you doing, Paul? And I go, well, I'm going to take these rate sheets out, and I'm going to go get some loans. And they're like, oh, okay, easy does it, Tiger. You're not ready yet. You got to, I need to get you more training about loans. And I'm like, no, I got this. And I went out and I started, trying to get loans. Well, I did need more knowledge, but I figured if I could put myself out there, that's the hard part. Learning the loan business, that's going to be easy. All that is studying. So
Right.
if I could put myself out there and pitch the loans, I'm just going to get better with having the knowledge. So I had that mindset, try to have that Novier mindset, just go out there and do your best, and not worry about what other people think about you, just do your job, pitch your product, and it was a success for me, and I was able to do that at a high level for many years. But in the back of my head, I've always, because I'm in sales, and because of my, background, I've always been into motivational speaking,
Mm-hmm.
motivational books.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, I want to do that. I think that would be more fulfilling to me. I want to help people. And I felt like I had a story that people could relate to. So I got my career counseling license a few years back, and then I recently quit being a loan officer, and now I'm a motivational coach full time.
That's fantastic. So I love the whole story. There's so many things there that were um, resonating with me, and also things I want to get back to. So we'll talk more about what you're currently doing, but I want to go all the way back to you as a child and actually figuring out at that early age the thing that I probably learned, I don't know, decades later than that. That you changing your mindset could have such a powerful effect on others, not only on yourself, but on the people around you and your whole life, really. Were there certain beliefs that you grabbed onto that were helpful, or how did you figure this out at that age, and what did you do?
Well, I think there's a couple things. One is I was just kind of fed up with, being this, this person that was crying all the time, and I didn't want to cry. I mean, that
Right.
was number one. I was just sick of crying. I don't
Yeah.
want to have to go in my room all day and cry. I
Hmm.
want to be happy. I want to, enjoy being a kid.
Right.
So that was number one, and then and number two, probably this was probably number one, is my mom is a fantastic mom,
Yeah.
and she set a bar for myself, saying, hey, look, you have some limitations, but we can get together, we'll get over it. And she was been my biggest cheerleader. She is still my biggest cheerleader
Hmm.
today. So I think a lot of it had to do with a great mom and a good upbringing.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, it was good that she was pushing for things even before you knew to push for them.
Yeah.
And then you sort of maybe piggybacked on some of her, um, I don't know, her ability to say, no, this isn't going to be the way this is going to go. Um, so, did you were you aware that you were shifting beliefs at that time, or is that something you kind of figured out later?
That definitely something I figured out later.
Hmm.
Right at the time, I'm talking, when I gave you the speech, this is a 39-year-old giving the speech. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
if you asked me to do this at 12 when I was talking, it would probably, the language would be totally different.
Hmm.
Um, but at the time, it was probably a distraction.
Yeah.
I didn't want to feel sad anymore. But when I played baseball, when I was practicing baseball, I wasn't sad. I was living in the present team. So didn't have the time to be sad, when I was
Hmm.
playing baseball. So it was more of a distraction, I think.
Yeah, but you also found something they could really, something that mattered to you, something that you enjoyed, that you could sink your teeth into and have really kind of a goal around baseball, which I think is another good point about how people move forward. I mean, that dream of playing varsity baseball was something that could pull you forward.
Absolutely. And if you ask me, what place are you when you're very happy? And one of the answers I can tell you, and this is because of my childhood going to a lot of games, is I love to go to a baseball game early
Mm.
and listen to batting practice. There's not that many people there. I can hear
Yeah.
the crack of the bat. It's very peaceful.
Mm.
Maybe have a good friend, and we just kind of shoot the breeze on live baseball, and I'm just living in the present. So
Hmm.
and I think that channels back to my childhood, with watching games with my parents.
Yeah. Yeah, baseball always seems to bring up a lot of really good memories for people. I know even my mom was not a baseball fan, but her dad loved baseball. And so there are just these really warm, wonderful memories when she even thinks about baseball. It's an interesting game that way. I think more than other sports, that one has people start reminiscing and feeling nostalgic around baseball. So Okay, so you were successful in your career that you chose in mortgage lending, and
Mm-hmm.
but decided to make a change. So what was going on for you? For people out there who are feeling kind of uncomfortable, like, this is working for me, I'm successful, but I'm just not super excited to get up in the morning. Did you start having those feelings, or did you just find something else that you were more motivated to do?
Yeah, most definitely. I kind of had a change. I mean, when I first got into the mortgage business, I was a gun ho, guns blazing every day, lived and loved it. And then probably, I would say, probably I would about 4 or 5 years ago, different regulations come into play, and just wasn't feeling the love like I used to,
Mm-hmm.
and just really getting into self-help books and motivation, looking at YouTube videos and looking at some of these people and getting inspired by these speeches. And I'm thinking to myself,
Yeah.
I want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to help people. I want to coach people. If they have goals, I want to help them. So it was a transition about 4 or 5 years ago, and then I started pulling the trigger about 2 or 3 years ago. I took a career coaching class, got my certificate, learned a lot of great things
Yeah.
about myself by doing it,
Right.
and thought to myself, okay, well, let me, let's what can I do? So I paid down all my debts, so I don't have much debts at all now. And I've cut down my lifestyle so that I can make this transition and not have the stress of money. And need be, I'll do odd jobs if I have to
Mm-hmm.
make this work. But
Right.
I really have a goal to make this work and to make this be a prosperous career for me. So the best sometimes the best thing to do is jump in the pool.
Yeah, yeah. And one thing that you have is a history of being successful at setting goals and achieving those goals. So I don't know if you use that historical information to kind of prop you up when you might start feeling, a little whatever people feel when they're building a business, which is oftentimes a little anxious or a little concerned. But I do think it helps to have those experiences to look back on and think, wow, look at what I was able to do before. So this shouldn't be too difficult, or at least not
Yeah,
insurmountable.
no question. And I found this out probably about 3 years ago. I used to think vulnerability was a weakness.
Mm-hmm.
Now I realize vulnerability is a strength.
Mm-hmm.
I used to hate to tell the story about me having cerebral palsy, because I didn't want people to feel sad for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't look at it that way now. I look at it as, maybe if I tell the story, I can help people,
Right.
motivate people that have similar limitations. That, you know what, you have worth in your life. You can
Mm-hmm.
find a passion,
Mm-hmm.
and you can go for it.
Yeah, and in some ways, what seems like a limitation maybe was, the greatest helper. I'm not. Who knows if you would have pushed so hard to be on the baseball team like you did had you not had to overcome something, some difficulty there.
Yeah, no question. Well, I don't know about that, but that part. But I know I probably wouldn't be a coach. I
Okay.
probably wouldn't have thought about being a coach if I didn't go through this. Go through my limitations of having cerebral palsy. I think me having cerebral palsy and looking at my story and looking how far I've come, I feel like that's kind of motivated me
Mm-hmm.
to go out and tell my story
Yeah.
to help other people.
Right. Right. Yeah. People who have all kinds of reasons for maybe not pursuing something. Um, so you're a great example of what's possible. I wanted to go back 2 seconds to where you were talking about how you prepared for your transition with financially. I mean, because you brought that up when we spoke earlier, and I thought it was so important for people to hear because there's not enough talk about that. People are like, "Yes, go for your dreams, and quit today and start working on what's next," which is great for some people. And then, but there is this reality of financial security and not feeling too stressed while you're trying to do that next venture. And so I thought it was extremely smart on your part that you took the time to think through, how can I set up my finances to give me some time, some cushion, whatever, so that I can work on this without constantly worrying about money. So I guess my question would be, was that just an automatic for you? Did you sit down one day and think, and what was some of the what was some of the thought process you had in terms of how you planned for this?
Well, as I tell a lot of my clients, is before you take action, and obviously taking action is very very important.
Mm-hmm.
Is set a plan in place, be prepared, and try to think about things that may come up.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, when you're starting a new business, money is going to be a big thing. So I thought to myself, okay, let me write out what my actual expenses need to be, and pay down the debts that I don't need, so that I can make this transition. So it was just being in my background in mortgage, because I'm looking at debt to income ratios all the time, and
Right.
people not qualifying because they have too much debt or whatever. So that I think that kind of helped me.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought to myself, well, I want to give this a real goal, and I don't want to be stressed out about money. Obviously, I obviously I need money, and if need be, like I said, I get odd jobs
Right.
to get it. But right now, I've put myself in a situation where I can just right now 100% concentrate on the coaching aspect of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. And that's another good point, is that so many people, as they're building a next new business, are still doing certain things to, provide uh, uh, and create salary, basically. Create the cash that will help them to go to stay with the new goal or the new business. So there's nothing wrong with that. I think sometimes people get very uncomfortable with that too. Like, oh my gosh, I have these other things I need to do to make money. Is that okay, or should I be 100% into my new business? And I think it's very individual, and it's all okay depending on what you need.
Oh yeah, no question about it. I mean, yeah, I was fortunate. Like I said, I was pretty successful as a mortgage loan officer, and I've never been a flashy kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
I've bought some stuff, some nice stuff in the past, but most of all, I like to invest it. So I've always been that mindset, of not just spending my money frivolously. So I've always been in a good position, because of that. I think it's just because of working in this industry, and seeing, I worked in this industry, in 2006 and 2007, and it just crashed. And I saw a lot of people, um, before the crash,
Yeah.
they were living paycheck to paycheck, and they were
Yeah.
making a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that they paid the price, because between 2008 and 2009, when they're driving these fancy Italian cars all over town, now they can't even get a job.
Yeah.
So it's just very sad. So I think that kind of humbled me a little bit. Like, hey, you know what? These people were very, very, very good salespeople,
Mm-hmm.
and even they had a transition period where they weren't making any money.
Right.
So it can happen to anybody. So
Mm-hmm.
it would be best if you took some time to put some reserves away, for those rainy days.
Right. Right. Super smart. And I mean, do you find that most people do that? I mean, I was struck by that when you told me, because I find a lot of people who don't do that. They either get into more debt, or they just, so that they can start their business, or they're just not focused. They're focused on what they want to do and how they want to help, but they don't necessarily spend that time and energy on that planning.
Unfortunately, you are absolutely right. With going through the mortgage business, I saw a lot of people with these debts, and thinking to myself, I don't like to judge, but I mean, I'm seeing some of these
Hmm.
debts they had, they really didn't need, but obviously, if they made them happy or whatever. But
Yeah.
it's just, it's just heartbreaking when they come to me and they're, they really need to lower their payment because they're really, really suffering. And sometimes I have to tell them, unfortunately, I mean, I'd like to be able to help you, but with rules and the regulations from the bank, I'm not able to help you. And a lot of the time, it's because their debt to income ratio way out of whack. And
Right.
you know, it's tough, especially with kids, and you want to give them the best things, and
Hmm.
you know, the old expression, keeping up with the Joneses. I
Right.
think that's very, very prevalent, especially us living in the LA area.
Yep.
Obviously, we want to impress our neighbor, and sometimes, you know, really not the best thing to do.
Right, and it does limit your freedom because, like you're saying, when you have that kind of debt or just a financial situation that is not great on paper, you're going to be limited in what you try to do, whether it's you know buying a home or starting a business. So really good to keep the pulse on that. So we call the show "The Power of Positivity" because you are definitely a positive thinker, and you bring positivity into your work. You've brought that into your own life, and so how do you tell us a little about how you use positivity in what you do, and what you think about the whole idea of being positive? Some people are funny
Well,
about that word.
first thing I would tell you is that it's not easy being positive all the time. Everybody has times where they're sad or are mad or angry, and I don't tell anybody to suppress those feelings. If
Yeah.
you're feeling sad or angry, that's okay. You can feel those feelings, but how long do you want to stay sad or
Hmm.
angry? And that's choice right there.
Right.
So after you feel like that's enough, you know what, you can change. You can change at that point. You're
Hmm.
aware that, what, I don't want to be sad or want to be angry anymore. I want to be happy, and at that point you can change. And one of the easiest things to do, and what I do in my life, and what I tell my clients to do, is think about something that you're grateful for.
Hmm.
Every day when you wake up, take a few minutes of your time, of your day, and just think about: is it my husband? Is it my wife? Is it my sense of humor? Is it my job? Is it my car?
Right.
Whatever you're grateful for, think about that. And every day, pick something new to be, that you're grateful for.
Hmm.
And over time, doing that, it actually just changes your chemistry, and you just all of a sudden, you know, get to work, or start your day in a happier place.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I do it myself, and boy, it does create a pretty fast shift, and it's a wonderful technique. And what do you tell people that you're doing coaching with, career coaching or any other kind of coaching, when they are feeling less than positive, and so they have the gratitude practice that they can employ, but what else? So how do you kind of boost up those feelings of either, I don't know, defeatedness or something that they might be feeling, loss when they lose a job?
Okay, well, yeah, well, the gratitude piece is the biggest thing I tell
Mm-hmm.
them. But another thing I tell them to do that helps me, is do selfless acts.
Mm.
Maybe after work, maybe there's a beach cleanup group. Go out and do that, or go to the hospital and read to children, or whatever you like to do
Yeah.
that's going to benefit somebody else. That there's not a monetary gain for you, do it.
Yeah.
And that also really helps you keep a positive mindset by doing those things, by
I
helping others.
Yeah, I love that. And what I'm hearing from this is basically get out of your head. I mean, stop allowing the negative thoughts to take over your mind and either point your mind toward gratitude or go off and focus on other people and other services that you could do.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because if I just tell somebody be happy, they're gonna be like, okay, that's easy to do. So I like to give them some sort of direction on what can make them happy. I mean, if you honestly think about what you're grateful for and really focus in on it,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard not to be happy when
Mm-hmm.
you do that. And then and two, and when you do a selfless act, and if you're doing it generally just to help that other person,
Yeah.
it's hard not to be happy after you see the look on that person's face that you know that you did something for them and that there
Right.
was no real monetary gain, or that you helped clean up, the beach,
Right.
or whatever you did. It's hard not to feel happy after you do that those
Mm-hmm.
things.
Right. And then that happy, positive energy can be harnessed for whatever you're doing next, whether that's reaching out to people you don't know or, um, I mean, you almost need to be in that positive state to do a great job, either in business or in changing your career, finding a new job, whatever that is that you're trying to do. So I think it's so important to have those tools so you know how to switch your mindset to being more positive.
Yeah, 100% agree with that totally.
So, what else do you work with your clients on? What are some of the big issues that you're seeing out there, and how do you use, either the mindset shifting or some other tools to help them?
Um, what a lot of my clients come to me for is, they're kind of stagnant in their company.
Mm,
They
okay.
don't know, they want to move up, but they're kind of having a hard time with it,
Okay.
and a lot of times comes back to, they talk about, oh, my
Yeah.
boss doesn't understand me. You go into that, into why my boss is not that great of a person, and I stop them on that.
Mm,
I go, well, why is your boss not very nice to you? What is it? And they'll start rambling stuff off, and they go, is there anything that you can think of that you do that might affect them? And I'm talking to one client, and he goes, well, sometimes I'm tardy a lot, and I
yeah.
go, that's huge. That
Yeah.
bosses that I worked for in the past, tardiness was like their number one thing. That
Right.
that was their biggest pet peeve.
Right.
So, if you're late for work, you're already putting the boss in a bad mindset for you.
Mm-hmm.
You're coming in 5-10 minutes late, and already you're on the wrong foot. So,
Yeah.
no matter what you do at that point, the boss is going to be upset with you. So
Right.
there's some things that you can do to benefit yourself. And I don't know, I didn't come up with this saying, but I really like it. Sometimes don't point the finger, point the thumb back at yourself,
Hmm.
and really evaluate, what you're doing at the job. I tell people, write out your role.
Yeah.
What do you think your role is, and write it out, and write out what you think you need to be doing. Are you doing those things?
Right.
And then and if you are, then let's schedule a meeting with your boss, and talk about
Mm.
what you can do to move up, or improve, because that's a lot of things. You can't control how your boss feels, but you control yourself. And
Right.
if you can tell yourself that you've been giving 110 and going out of your
We seem to be having a bit of a problem with our audio at the moment. See,
Okay,
there you are.
I'm
Okay.
back. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I,
Go
I
ahead.
didn't hear you. Are you there,
Um,
Michelle?
I am. You froze up for a minute though, so why don't we go back to what you were explaining? Um,
Okay. So, when I tell my clients, sometimes when they're in a job and they're not being able to move up, and
mm-hmm.
they're talking about how they don't like their boss, their boss is not very nice to them. I kind of stop them. I go, well, why do you think your boss is not that nice to you? And and they'll talk about, sometimes I'm tardy, and I go, well,
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
in my experiences, working with managers, sometimes that's like their biggest pet peeve is being late. So, you're already on the wrong foot. So you could be an excellent employee, but if you're late all the time, your boss is not looking at that because they can't get over the fact that you're late all the time.
Yeah. Right.
So I have a saying, or I didn't make this saying up, but I like it. Is sometimes don't point the finger, point the thumb back at you. What can you do to change, what you can do to be helpful at your job, and I always tell people, write out the role of your job
Mm-hmm.
and what you need to do in the job, and write down what you're doing, you know write down what you're doing for that job,
Right.
and is it matching up? Are you hitting all those criterias of your role?
Mm-hmm.
And then, with that information, go to your boss and tell them, tell him or her, you know what can I do to move up in the company?
Right.
What do I need to prove upon?
Right. Right.
And if you have a good boss, hopefully they'll give you some good feedback, and hopefully you can implement that in your day-to-day work, and do it. I mean, all you can do is worry about yourself and give
Yeah.
it a 110%. And if you give it 110, then you can be happy with that. But if you're not, then the only person you can blame is yourself on that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I wish I'd known back in my corporate days, because when I think about the amount of time spent complaining about bosses or clients or coworkers or whatever, I mean, everybody, it was kind of a culture of that was just what everybody was doing. And it was much too externally focused when you had issues or problems or were unhappy with work. So, yeah, very, very interesting, because you're absolutely right. There's one person you can control. And it's something that I wish more people would focus on. If they really want to make a change, if they just want to complain, that's one thing. But if they really want to change the game, then, it's up to them to make some changes in themselves. So, but that it does feel like there are a lot of other people who are contributing to your unhappiness at work, which may be the case, but the only place to look to fix it really is within yourself. So that's a great thing that you're helping people with. So, and do you find that people are open to that? They accept their own responsibility?
I feel at first they're kind of taken back by it a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. I don't, I gotta be, I mean, I want to motivate people, but I have to be honest with them
Right,
too.
right.
So if I notice something that I don't think is, totally, 100% correct, I need to tell them how I feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but after I tell them, my observation, I explain where I'm coming from, and hopefully after they hear where I'm coming from, a lot of times they'll come around at that point. But at first, the initial shock is like, oh, what? I don't do anything wrong. And then,
Yeah,
well, wait a minute. Well, yeah, I am late sometimes, or
right,
or I do skip out early, or I do surf the web when I shouldn't be, or whatever they're doing.
right.
They start to kind of take responsibility on that.
Yeah, yeah, great. Okay. And do you, as far as your own business that you've transitioned into, what are some of the challenges that you're finding in going from, obviously you were in a more structured work environment, knew what to do, and were able to execute really well. Now that you have your own business, what are some of the things that you've found that you've needed to implement for yourself to make that work?
I just have to keep the structure.
Mm-hmm.
I get up early every morning, and I go to the gym,
Okay.
and I think about my day. I think about what I want to accomplish for the day, and then I go home, take a shower, and then I start executing. Whether it's doing a podcast, or networking with people on LinkedIn, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever my plan is for the day.
Right.
I try to have a plan in place each day. That way, I'm not floundering, and I don't have a purpose. I want to have a purpose each day. Um, but the thing is, when I was in mortgage sales, I mean, I had to plan my day too.
Right.
Like my boss wasn't, next to me all day long,
Yeah.
so I kind of had to plan my day accordingly myself. I mean, obviously it's kind of a different avenue. I was going, talking with realtors and, you know, uh, potential clients and everything like that, but it's kind of sales is sales. So, I've taken those skills and kind of transferred them over to coaching, and just kind of
Mm.
representing what I do now and trying to help people, and
Right.
tell people what I'm doing now. Now, the thing is, I'm just trying to brand myself as a coach. I mean, everybody knew me as a loan officer because
Mm-hmm.
that's how I branded myself. And
Mm-hmm.
now I am, every day trying to brand myself as a coach.
Right.
And I'm getting some good feedback, and I've been implementing different things that will help. But I've been getting a lot of uh, positive vibes about doing it, so it's making me real good.
That's great. And you have a podcast as well. Do you want to tell us about that? And what was the reason for doing that?
Yes, I have a podcast with my I guess my co-host Justin Atherton, and he's a coach as well. We have different styles. He
Mm-hmm.
has a different background. He comes from law enforcement, so he has a different style of coaching than I do. So it's kind of cool. So
Mm-hmm.
he gives his style, and I give my style, and basically the whole theme of the podcast is if you can believe, you can achieve, and that's the kind of mindset we go through. So we bring on guests, and we just kind of pick their brain on how they got to where they got, so that viewers can hear, hey, you know what, nothing's easy,
Mm-hmm.
but these people put their bootstraps on and went for it.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And so you are able to help people really achieve things that aren't easy, which I think is what us coaches do. Because if when faced with that, not everybody knows how to think about it or what direction to go or how to make that happen. They might be willing to do the work, but uh, the way they're thinking about it can limit them, and then also a lot of times they just don't know the best strategy to take action. So
Yeah, I find the hardest thing is starting for anybody. A lot of people have a good plan,
yeah,
but they're just so the fear of failure. They can't just start it. For me, I just want to just try to give them the confidence that you can do this. I Now it's not going to be easy, and there's definitely going to be roadblocks, but
right,
you can overcome it.
right.
And that's my message to my clients and my podcasts and everyday life is, you know what, if you can believe, you can achieve.
I love that, and that's worked for you, and I'm sure is working for your clients. Um, so when you talk about believing, is that the main? I mean, do you feel like mindset is the most important piece of the coaching that you do versus the planning and the strategy and things like that? I mean, just in general, do you find that what people need most is to pay attention to their thoughts and how they can shift perspective on things?
100%. It's about mindset. If you have the right mindset, you can do anything. It's all about belief. So if you have the right attitude, positive thinking, um, you're more productive. When I'm happy, I'm more productive at work or
Right,
any task I'm doing. When I'm, thinking about I'm sad or angry, my productivity goes way down. So
right.
if I can keep myself upbeat and positive, I can do way more tasks than if I'm angry.
Right, right. And when you talk to people about their fear of failure, how do you address that?
I ask them, what is the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah.
Give me the worst scenario that if you were to fail, what would happen? And most of the time it's just, well, maybe I run out of money. And then I go, well, then you can just go back to your regular job, right? And they go, yeah. I go, is that bad? They're like, well, no. So let's go.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. Usually when people are actually asked that question, what is the worst thing that can happen? It's not that bad. I mean, it might mean going back and, maybe uh, giving up on the dream and going back to what they had. But if that's the worst, you're right. Why not go for it and see? So I think it's very interesting that people do have trouble seeing that on their own. They need that pointed out. It feels like.
Yeah, Mark, no question. I think the biggest thing I do is I'm a cheerleader. They come to me and they're like, "Oh, this happened," and I go, "Well, that's okay because you're going to be able to do X, Y, and Z, and we're going to get over it." And then by the end of the call, they're like, "Oh, okay, okay," and then I'm just kind of they have to come for me to get gas, and I put gas in their car, and then I go again. So,
Yeah, that's great. I do think, fear, worry, doubt, lack of confidence, those do seem to be the big stumbling blocks. Sometimes money, sometimes other people's, feelings about what they're doing. So all of that can be addressed and changed primarily within your own mind, and then in what you do. But yeah, very interesting. It seems like such a big deal, right, to fail at something, but actually, I don't know. I don't see failure the same way. I was actually listening to something this morning, and somebody was talking about, X% of businesses fail every year, and I'm thinking, well, some fail, some the people just give up or quit, some, they just end. It's not really a failure. It's just they don't do that anymore. Maybe they just transition into something else. I don't know. I've sort of gotten away from the idea of failure. I don't really know what is a failure anymore. It's mostly just a learning experience to me. But
well, you look at the most successful people, whether it be in sports or in business or whatever, and they'll talk to you about failure, that they failed a lot, and they looked at failure as a teaching tool.
yeah, yeah,
And
sports has to be the best analogy for that.
oh yeah, Michael Jordan. He said it. He goes, well, how can you take the last shot? How are you able to take and make the last shot? And he goes, I'm not afraid to miss. And that's very, very important.
Yeah, yeah,
He's looking at failure in the eyes and going, okay, you know what? I'm gonna make that. I'm gonna put the shot up. And I may miss it, but that's okay. I'm gonna put the shot up, and that's huge.
yeah. That's huge, and that's purely mindset. That's just seeing it as okay to try and miss and go on and keep trying. And your sales background too. I think good salespeople, know how to take a lot of no's and keep going until they get a yes. So
Most definitely. My motto at the time was a no might be a maybe down the road.
yeah, yeah. I've also heard a no just means not now or not this, but it's not really
Yeah.
no. Yeah, yeah. That's great. Well, I knew it would go fast. It did. So we're just about out of time. Would you like to tell people how they can get in touch with you? Why they might want to get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can get in touch with me on my website, a call to action.coach. And if you want to listen to my podcast, it's Actions and Limits. You can go to Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere really where you listen to your podcast. Actions and Limits available. And you can even see us, if you want to, on YouTube. So you can see our smiling faces when we talk to our guests.
Yeah, that's great. I just subscribed this morning to Actions and Limits and listened to one of them. It was great. So thank you. And yeah, so please go ahead and reach out to Paul, and he can help you with mindset, career shifting, business, all the things. Basically, mindset shows up in every area of life. So if that's something that you need help with, we have somebody who has really experienced great mindset shifting of his own and helps people with that as well. So Paul, thank you. Thank you for being here today. Really enjoyed it.
Oh, it was a pleasure. It was fun talking with you.
Good. Yeah, I agree. So thank you. And I'll be sure to listen to you. And thank you, audience, for being here with us today. We're here every Wednesday at 1 o'clock. You can also find the shows on all the podcast platforms, Apple Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, etc., and on the Limit Free Life YouTube channel. So we'll be here again next week with another great show to help you with whatever it is you're seeking, a new career, a great business you love, more money, all those things that help work just be wonderful in your life, and to help all the other areas of your life, your health and wealth and relationships, and all that improves when the work you do is satisfying and fulfilling and matters to you and wakes you up in the morning excited to go. So have a great week. Go out there and make sure that you're creating work you love. We'll see you next time.